students. So in earlier class we have seen how the design of boiler joints are going to be performed, and coming to today's class we are going to see how the joints are going to be designed. So by the application of the load with respect of some eccentric distance with the center of gravity. So that is eccentrically loaded riveted joints. So here the same concept can also be used for welded as well as a bolted joint, so that bolts are in shear. So let us see how these loading conditions are going to be in the riveted joints. So here it is a eccentrically loaded bolted joint. So here you can observe. So this is the rivet 1 and it is a rivet 2 and as well as 3 and 4. So here the load is acting on the joint, so not directly at the with respect of the bolt rivets. So here the load is acting from the center of gravity of all the rivets. So here so you can have the center of gravity at the center of the rivets. Why? Because of the symmetrical arrangement of the rivets, so that the center of gravity will lie at the center of the rivets. So here from the center of gravity to the load application, so that is a load P. So there is an offset distance will be given, that is E. So due to this eccentric distance of rivets, so the rivets may subjected to twisting moment. So as well as their shear of rivets. So how these riveted joints are going to be designed. So that is in order to withstand the load P. So with the application of the eccentric load or distance with respect of center of gravity. So the necessary size required to be kept to withstand the joint that is going to be found out in the design. So that is so when the load line of action of the load does not pass through the center of the rivets and that rivets are not equally loaded, then the joint is said to be eccentrically loaded riveted joint. So here I can observe. So this is the fixed plate. So and here this is the plate that is joined upon the rivet, which means here at the rivet 1 as well as the 2 will be lies at the center and rivet 3 and 4 will lie at the center. So by the application of the load here, so the load is acting downward, so in this direction, so upon this plate. So initially you can consider, so we don't consider so this eccentric load, we can consider the load will be acting at the center of gravity G. So that is center of gravity of all the rivets. So the load will be acting through it. So whatever the load, the magnitude acting at the end here, so the same magnitude of the load is assumed load can be acting or passing through the center of gravity P. So that so due to this load acting, so here the load is acting in this direction, so which will perpendicular to the axis of load. So the load acting is perpendicular to the axis of load, which will causes the shearing of rivets at this juncture of fixed plate and the this another bracket. So here due to this shearing, so that so the shearing load will act. So this whatever the total magnitude acting at the center of gravity will shares to equally share to all the number of rivets, so that the direct shear force may be acts or direct shear resisting force may be acts at the all the number of rivets. That is what we call it as primary shear force. So along with the primary shear force, so here now consider the second case. So with an eccentric distance with respect of center of gravity, due to these so load into their eccentric distance about the center of gravity, which will cause us a turning moment. So due to this turning moment of load, that will induce us or that will act their secondary shear forces. So here we are having the two types of forces. So one is when the load is acting, imaginary load is acting through the center of gravity, which will subjected to the direct shear, so that the total load can be equally shared to all the number of rivets. That is a primary shear force. And secondarily, you can consider the eccentric distance E. So that will induces the twisting moment about the center of gravity, that will given by P into E. So and that will imposes the secondary shear forces, that is each rivet can also subjected to twisting. So due to this, so torsional shear stress, so for the secondary shear force, sorry, not the torsional shear, so the secondary shear force is acting on the rivets here. So we need to see how the primary shear forces are going to be found out, and how the secondary shear forces are going to be found out, and finally how the resultant shear forces are going to be calculated, so that we can find that can be equated to the shear strength of all the rivets, can find the diameter of the rivets are required to withstand the eccentric load acting on the joint. Clear? So firstly you can go with the primary shear forces. So before that, how to calculate the center of gravity, that you are already known in your earlier courses. So the center of gravity is given, so that is x dash and y dash with respect of all the rivets. There is A1, A2, A3 and so on. If you have the number of rivets, the cross section areas of rivets, and distances from the origin x1, x2, x3, x4 likewise by area. So here we are assumed all the rivets are identical rivets, so that the cross section areas are same. So that I will take n into A, so that total cross section area will get cancelled. So that x dash is calculated by x1 plus x2 plus x3 and so on, divided by number of rivets denoted by n. So similarly y dash you can also calculate y1 plus y2 plus y3 and so on, divided by n, so that by means of x dash and y dash you will get the center of gravity of group of rivets. So not the single rivet, so for each rivet the center of gravity lies at center, but for group of rivets we are having, we need to find their proper center of gravity by knowing this x bar and y bar. So that is the basic thing. So after that you can find so the primary shear force. So here the primary shear force, when the load is acting at the imaginary force which is equal to the magnitude of the load P, so acting at the center of gravity P. So you can observe in the diagram clearly, this is the load is acting downwards, so that there is always so the resisting forces will act at the each rivet. So and these total load can be equally shared by all the number of rivets, 1, 2, 3 and as well as 4. All the 4 rivets can be equally shared. So that so the primary shear force acting at each rivet is given by, so here the primary forces can be denoted by P dash or P1 dash, so as well as P2 dash and P3 dash and so on, and that can be given by total load, that is denoted by P by number of rivets in the joint. So that is can always act upwards, there is a load is acting downwards and the resisting forces act upwards, opposite to the load acting. So here in first case you can assume the load is acting along the center of gravity, so that the resisting force acting upwards at all the number of rivets, and each load can be, that is a total load can be equally shared by the all the number of rivets, that is given by total load by number of rivets. So here we are taking the rivets are assumed as the same size. The effect of load P is to produce the shear stress, that is of the direct shear load on each rivet. The direct shear load on each rivet of equal magnitudes. So the total load, the direct shear load are equally shared to all the number of rivets. The imaginary load P at center of gravity results in primary shear forces P1 dash, P2 dash, P3 dash and P4 dash, and it is given by the following equation: P1 dash, P2 dash, P3 dash and P4 dash equal to number of total load by number of rivets. So that is a primary shear force which acts upwards, that is opposite to the direction of the load acting at the center of gravity. Clear? So that is total load by number of rivets in a joint. And nextly the secondary shear force. So the secondary shear force, so you can observe that is a moment is going to be created due to the eccentric distance E, so that the moment is given by P into E. So and about the center, and the secondary shear forces P1 double dash you can represent with P1 double dash, P2 double dash and P3 double dash are the radial distances, are perpendicular to the radial distances from center of gravity to the center of rivet. So here the radial distances are denoted by R1, R2, R3 and R4 from the center of gravity to the rivet. So you can here write is the center of gravity. So this is the radial distance R1 for the center of the rivet 1, and R2 is the center of gravity to the rivet 2, and R3 is the center of gravity to the rivet 3. From center of gravity to the center of the rivet 4 you can denote with R4. So here it is stating, So the moment, so P into E, which is perpendicular to the, so which is perpendicular, that is proportional to the radial distances, so that we can written as so each secondary force acting at each rivet can be, so can also written as so the total moment acting in the joint, that is given by P into E, which will be equal to moments, the sum of all moments of all the rivets. So each moment can be written as so the moment at the rivet 1 can be written as, so the secondary shear force acting at rivet 1 into their radial distance. So here this is the total moment, that is P into E, but here the moment at the rivet 1 can be given by, so P1 double dash into their radial distance, that is R1. So that is about the rivet 1. Similarly at rivet 2, so P1 double dash into R1 as a moment at rivet 1. Similarly, so P2 double dash into R2, moment at rivet 2, and P3 double dash into R3, so moment at rivet 4, and P4 double dash into R4 gives the moment at rivet 4. So here we can also written as the total moment in the joint, that is denoted by P into E, can be equated to the sum of all moments. So the sum of all moments of rivets, that is P1 double dash into R1, P2 double dash into R2, P3 double dash into R3, so P4 double dash into R4. Similarly, you can written this expression, so that is the total moment is equal to the sum of all moments. So where P1, P2, so P1 double dash, P2 double dash, P3 double dash, and P4 double dash are the secondary shear forces acting due to the total moment about the center of gravity. Clear? So and R1 and R2, R3, R4 are the radial distances from the center of gravity to the center of the rivets. So that I can write the total moment of PE can be written as the moments at individual rivets, the sum of all the moments. So P1 double dash into R1, P2 double dash into R2, P3 double dash into R3, plus P4 double dash into R4. Clear? And there is one more assumption that, so these secondary shear forces acting at each rivet is directly proportional to the radial distances from the center of gravity to the center of rivets, which means so P1 double dash can be directly proportional to R1. So if the radial distance is greater, so that the secondary shear force acting at their particular rivet is going to be greater. So similarly, so we can also write P1 double dash directly proportional to R2, so P3 double dash proportional to R3, P4 double dash proportional to R4. So likewise, so all their secondary shear forces proportional to their radial distances. So to avoid these proportionality constant, I can place a constant here. So P1 double dash can be written as C into R1. So likewise P2 double dash can be written as C into R2. So P3 double dash equal to C into R3, P4 double dash equal to C into R4. From this equation, so this will be taken as equation 1 as well as this will be taken as equation 2. So from these equations 1 and 2, so P1 double dash can be written as C into R1. So P2 double dash equal to C into R2. So P3 double dash equal to C into R3. So likewise we will get to C into R4. So that you can take a common of C here. So PE can be given as C into R1 square plus R2 square plus R3 square plus R4 square. So like that you will get the value of C. So from that the C can be calculated by C equal to PE by R1 square, R2 square, R3 square plus R4 square. From that you can find out the constant value C. So using that you can find the secondary shear forces acting at each rivet. So P1 double dash equal to C into R1. You can substitute the value of C here. So C, what is C? So PE by R1 square, R2 square, R3 square plus R4 square. Which means, so here we can substitute the value of C. So we'll get the secondary shear forces. So you can see secondary shear force can be given by P into E into R1 by R1 square plus R2 square, R3 square plus R4 square. So similarly P2 double dash, P3 double dash and P4 double dash, you can find out the secondary shear forces. But here these secondary shear forces will always act perpendicular to the radial distances. You can observe clearly. So this P1 double dash is acting, so this is the radial distance and this secondary shear force acting opposite to the moment. So the moment is clockwise. So we can have the anti-clockwise direction. We need to act the secondary shear forces, and which is perpendicular to the radial distance, and that is P1 double dash and P2 double dash, this is the radial distance, and P2 double dash is so perpendicular to that. So this is the P2 double dash, and this is the radial distance of rivet 3 R3, and the P3 double dash is perpendicular to that. And similarly, this is the R4, so P4 double dash is perpendicular to that. So you can observe, so all the secondary shear forces will act anti-clockwise direction. So why? Because the moment is acting clockwise, we need to take opposite to that anti-clockwise. So you can observe, so this is so all the primary shear forces acting upwards, and the secondary shear forces acting perpendicular to the radial distances. Please remember that. So primary shear forces acting upwards, and the secondary shear forces acting perpendicular to their radial distances. So after calculating the primary shear forces and secondary shear forces, we need to find the resultant shear force by means of vector addition. So we know that the vector addition, so if we can find out the value angle between the primary shear force and secondary shear force, primary is acting upwards and secondary with some inclination. This is a P1 dash and this is P1 double dash, so that I can find the resultant shear force, that is P1, that is the resultant shear force acting at rivet 1. Similarly, you can find all the resultant shear forces by means of root of P1 dash square plus P1 double dash square plus 2P P1 dash P1 double dash into cos theta, will get the resultant at 1. So similarly, you can find all the resultant. The maximum resultant value should be equal to the, so that is maximum resultant shear load, so can be equated to the shear strength of all the rivets, that is pi by 4 d square into tau. Clear, the shear strength of each rivet. So here I don't need to take then n. So why? Because this is the resultant shear force is only for single rivet. So we are calculating separately the resultant forces at each rivet. So the maximum resultant shear force can be equated to their shear strength, that is the shear area pi by 4 d square into their permissible shear stress. From that you can find out the diameter of rivet. Clear? So due to the eccentricity, so the same design procedure can also be followed for eccentrically loaded bolted joints when the bolts are in shear condition. So the same procedure can also be followed there. So here the primary is the shear. So why? Because the load is acting perpendicular to the axis of rivets. So and the load is acting downwards, the resisting forces acting upwards at all the number of rivets, and their magnitude is taken. The total load can be equally shared to all the number of rivets. And the secondary shear forces due to the total moment, so we can get the total moment can be taken as equal to the sum of moments at each rivet. So that is given by their secondary shear forces into their radial distances. So the radial distance is from center of gravity to the center of the rivets. And here the radial distances can act anti-clockwise. Why? Because of the moment acting clockwise and their direction is perpendicular to their radial distances. After getting primary and secondary shear forces at each rivet, we can find the resultant shear force at each rivet, out of which the by means of vector addition, out of which the maximum shear force or the maximum resultant shear force can be equated to the shear strength of rivets, that is pi by 4 d square shear area into the permissible shear stress tau. We can find out the required size of or the required diameter of the rivet used in that particular joint in order to resist the externally applied load. Clear? So we can go with some example problems in the very next class. So after that we can move on with the welded joints. Thank you.